Have you ever considered that bell pepper plants are capable of producing for much longer than most gardeners realize? In many home gardens, peppers are treated as short-term annual crops, planted in spring, harvested during the growing season, and removed once cooler weather arrives. Yet under favorable conditions, bell peppers can continue growing and producing harvests far beyond a single season without constantly draining the soil or requiring repeated replanting. In this guide, we'll explore 7 powerful principles that can help create the feeling of continuous bell pepper harvests. These approaches are inspired by no-dig gardening methods, healthy soil ecosystems, and the natural growth habits of pepper plants. They are not quick fixes or artificial tricks, but practical strategies that work with nature rather than against it. By making a few important adjustments, a single pepper plant can become a long-lasting and highly productive source of fresh harvests. 1. Build living soil rather than growing in lifeless dirt. The foundation of long-term bell pepper productivity starts below ground, long before fertilizer or sunlight comes into the picture. In natural ecosystems, pepper plants do not grow in compacted, frequently disturbed soil. Instead, they thrive in rich environments filled with decomposing leaves, organic matter, beneficial fungi, microbes, insects, and countless forms of biological activity. This living ecosystem is what supports healthy, productive plants over extended periods. The effectiveness of no-dig gardening comes from preserving this underground network rather than disrupting it. Each time soil is heavily tilled or dug, delicate fungal connections are broken, microbial communities are disturbed, and nutrients are released too quickly instead of gradually becoming available over time. Pepper plants growing in repeatedly disturbed soil may show rapid early growth, but they often lose vigor and stop producing sooner. A no-dig system works differently. It builds fertility naturally from the surface downward, closely resembling the way nutrients cycle through a forest floor. By regularly applying layers of compost, aged manure, straw, shredded leaves, grass clippings, worm castings, or other organic materials to the soil surface, gardeners create a slow-release source of nutrition. Earthworms and microorganisms gradually process this material and transport nutrients deeper into the soil, where plant roots can access them over time. This steady supply helps prevent the sudden nutrient fluctuations that often stress pepper plants and shorten their productive lifespan. Healthy living soil also allows pepper roots to form beneficial partnerships with fungi and bacteria. These microorganisms extend the plant's reach into the soil, helping it access water, phosphorus, calcium, trace minerals, and other essential nutrients that might otherwise remain unavailable. As a result, pepper plants often develop stronger root systems, recover more quickly after fruit production, and experience less stress from changing environmental conditions. This is one reason peppers grown in biologically active soil frequently continue producing much longer than expected. Rather than declining after a single heavy harvest, they often keep growing, branching, flowering, and setting fruit, because the soil ecosystem continues supporting healthy growth. Given favorable conditions, a bell pepper growing in rich, undisturbed soil may remain productive 2, 3, or even 4 times longer than a plant growing in depleted or heavily cultivated ground. Healthy soil produces healthy plants. Lifeless soil produces short-lived plants. If continuous harvests are the goal, the soil itself must remain vibrant and alive. 2. Select varieties that naturally produce over long periods. Not all bell pepper varieties are equally suited to extended production. Many modern commercial cultivars were developed specifically for large-scale agriculture, where growers often want plants that mature quickly, produce a concentrated harvest, and finish their life cycle within a predictable time frame. In these systems, breeders typically prioritize rapid ripening, uniform fruit size, and efficient harvesting rather than long-term productivity. For gardeners seeking ongoing harvests, variety selection becomes a critical factor. The most productive choices are often varieties that naturally continue branching, flowering, and growing throughout the season instead of quickly reaching the end of their productive cycle. Bell peppers with vigorous growth habits and strong branching structures are particularly well suited for extended production. Rather than focusing all their energy on a single flush of fruit, these plants continue developing new stems, flowers, and peppers as long as growing conditions remain favorable. Heirloom and open-pollinated varieties are often especially valuable in this regard. Because they were not bred solely for industrial efficiency, Many traditional varieties possess stronger root systems, greater adaptability, and more flexible growth patterns. These characteristics often allow them to perform exceptionally well in no-dig gardens, where nutrients become available gradually and soil biology remains balanced and healthy. In warmer regions, some pepper plants can behave almost like perennial shrubs. If protected from frost and extreme cold, they may continue growing and producing fruit for many months, or even several years. Gardeners in cooler climates can often achieve similar results by overwintering pepper plants indoors, in greenhouses, or under protective structures. Once returned outdoors the following season, these mature plants frequently outperform newly started seedlings because their root systems are already fully developed. One particularly interesting trait of long-producing pepper varieties is the way they respond to harvesting. Some plants naturally slow down after producing a heavy crop. Others react differently. Vigorous, long-season peppers often respond to harvesting by producing additional branches, more flowers, and continued fruit development. Their growth pattern is based on endurance rather than speed. The potential for continuous harvest begins with choosing varieties that naturally want to keep growing. Long before the first pepper appears, that ability is already built into the plant's genetics. 3. Don't remove the plant. Too soon. Help it rebuild and produce again. One of the most common mistakes gardeners make with bell peppers is assuming the plant has reached the end of its life the moment production begins to slow. As soon as harvests become smaller or less frequent, many people pull the plant out and replace it with something new. In reality, however, most pepper plants are not finished at all. They're simply recovering from the tremendous amount of energy required to produce fruit. Bell peppers are not naturally programmed to produce one crop and then permanently stop. Instead, they grow in cycles. After a period of heavy fruit production, a large portion of the plant's energy is directed toward developing and ripening peppers. During this time, growth often slows, flowering decreases, and the plant may appear tired or less vigorous. This phase can easily be mistaken for decline, but it is usually just a period of recovery. Rather than removing the plant, a far more productive strategy is to help it regain strength and encourage a new flush of growth. One of the first steps is harvesting mature peppers regularly. When ripe fruits remain on the plant for too long, the plant continues investing energy into maintaining and ripening them. Removing those fruits signals that it is time to produce new flowers and fresh growth. Light pruning can also play an important role. Removing damaged leaves, weak stems, overcrowded growth, and branches that are no longer productive allows sunlight and airflow to penetrate deeper into the canopy. This healthier environment often stimulates the development of vigorous new shoots. In a no-dig garden, recovery is often even more effective because the root system remains intact and undisturbed. Beneath the soil, the plant already possesses an established network of roots connected to beneficial fungi and microorganisms. Once excess top growth is removed, those mature roots can quickly support fresh growth above ground. Many gardeners are surprised to discover that a pepper plant's second or even third productive cycle can sometimes exceed its first harvest in both quantity and quality. In warm climates, peppers may repeat this process several times within a single growing season. In regions with mild winters, they can even behave like short-lived perennials when protected from frost and prolonged cold temperatures. The lesson is simple. Avoid starting over when a healthy root system already exists. Mature roots are one of the plant's greatest assets, and removing them means losing months of underground development. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is help a plant recover rather than replace it. 4. Feed the soil ecosystem instead of feeding the plant directly. One of the central principles of no-dig gardening is understanding what truly needs nourishment. Traditional gardening often focuses on feeding plants directly through fertilizers incorporated into the soil. No-dig gardening takes a different approach. Rather than feeding the roots themselves, it feeds the living soil community, and the soil community, in turn, nourishes the plant. This is how natural ecosystems have functioned for thousands of years. In forests, meadows, and wild landscapes, nutrients are not injected into the ground. Instead, they arrive from above through fallen leaves, decomposing plants, animal waste, dead insects, and other organic materials. These materials remain on the surface, where fungi, bacteria, earthworms, and countless microorganisms gradually break them down and recycle their nutrients. This continuous natural process allows ecosystems to remain fertile for generations without cultivation or synthetic fertilizers. Bell peppers benefit greatly from this same approach. Every few weeks, apply a thin layer of compost, aged manure, shredded leaves, grass clippings, straw, worm castings, or other organic materials around the base of the plant. Rather than digging these materials into the soil, simply leave them on the surface and allow natural processes to take over. As decomposition occurs, fungi transport nutrients through vast underground networks, bacteria convert organic matter into plant-available forms, and earthworms gradually incorporate material into deeper layers of soil. At the same time, soil structure, moisture retention, and aeration continue improving. The result is a slow, balanced, and consistent supply of nutrients, rather than short-lived bursts of fertility followed by depletion. This steady feeding pattern is one of the keys to extended pepper production. Many plants slow down in midsummer because nutrient reserves become exhausted. Fast-acting fertilizers may stimulate rapid growth initially, but they can also contribute to cycles of excess followed by deficiency. Surface feeding avoids these extremes. Instead of repeated surges and crashes, the plant receives ongoing support from a healthy and active soil ecosystem. Over time, the soil becomes richer rather than poorer. Each new layer of organic matter strengthens microbial activity, increases organic content, improves water retention, and supports healthier root systems. As soil quality improves year after year, pepper plants often become more resilient, more productive, and capable of producing harvest for much longer periods. When the soil remains healthy and well-fed, the plant rarely runs out of the energy it needs to continue growing. 5. Reduce stress. Rather than focusing only on water, when bell pepper plants stop producing, many gardeners assume the problem is age. More often, however, the real issue is stress. Peppers are naturally capable of growing and producing for much longer than most people realize, but they perform best when their environment remains stable and supportive. Whenever stress becomes excessive, the plant shifts its priorities. Instead of directing energy toward flowers and fruit, it focuses on survival. Temperature fluctuations are one of the most common causes of reduced productivity. Bell peppers dislike extreme conditions. Excessively hot soil can damage roots and interfere with nutrient uptake, while cold soil can slow growth dramatically and create physiological stress. This is one reason mulch plays such an important role in no-dig gardening. Thick layers of straw, shredded leaves, grass clippings, or wood chips act as insulation around the root zone. During hot weather, mulch helps keep soil cooler. During cooler periods, it helps preserve warmth. The result is a more stable root environment throughout the season. Healthy roots lead to healthier plants. Watering practices are equally important. Many gardeners water too frequently but too lightly. This encourages shallow roots that remain vulnerable to heat and drought. Peppers generally respond better to deep, thorough watering followed by a period of partial drying before the next irrigation. This approach encourages roots to grow deeper into the soil, where they can access larger reserves of moisture and nutrients during challenging conditions. Fruit load can also create hidden stress. When a pepper plant becomes covered with mature fruits, it may interpret this as having completed its reproductive mission. As a result, flowering slows and new growth decreases. Regular harvesting helps prevent this response. Picking peppers while they're green or just beginning to change color encourages the plant to remain in active production mode instead of transitioning toward dormancy. The more stable and stress-free the environment becomes, the longer peppers continue producing. When stress is minimized, bell peppers often stop behaving like short-lived annual vegetables and begin acting more like long-term productive plants, capable of delivering harvest after harvest. 6. Prune for productivity, not just appearance. Pruning bell peppers is about far more than maintaining a neat appearance. Its primary purpose is to keep the plant healthy, vigorous, and capable of producing fruit for as long as possible. Many gardeners fall into one of two extremes. Some prune too aggressively, removing large amounts of growth and unintentionally weakening the plant. Others avoid pruning entirely, allowing overcrowded stems, aging leaves, and unproductive branches to accumulate. Both approaches can reduce long-term productivity. The most effective strategy lies somewhere in between. As pepper plants mature, older leaves naturally become less efficient. They may shade new growth, reduce airflow, and trap excess moisture within the canopy. Over time, these conditions can encourage disease, pest problems, and declining vigor. Removing yellowing leaves, damaged stems, crowded branches, and weak interior growth improves both light penetration and ventilation. Better airflow reduces humidity around the plant and helps lower the risk of fungal diseases that can shorten its productive lifespan. Pruning also influences how the plant allocates its resources. Older branches that no longer contribute significantly to production still consume water and nutrients. By removing these less productive sections, the plant can redirect energy toward fresh shoots, new flowering sites, and vigorous growth. In no-dig gardens, this effect can be especially noticeable because the mature root system already possesses substantial reserves of energy and nutrients. Once older growth is removed, the roots can quickly support the development of healthy new growth. The key is moderation. Removing too much at once may shock the plant and temporarily reduce production. Small, regular adjustments tend to be far more effective than occasional drastic pruning. Think of pruning as an ongoing process of renewal rather than a major corrective action. The goal is not to force the plant into a specific shape, but to help it remain balanced, youthful, and productive throughout its life. A pepper plant that receives gentle maintenance often continues producing much longer than one that becomes overcrowded and neglected. 7. Protect the roots and production will follow. The final secret to seemingly endless bell pepper harvests lies beneath the soil surface. The root system serves as the plant's reservoir of energy, resilience, and regenerative potential. Whenever soil is heavily cultivated, compacted, or repeatedly disturbed, root efficiency declines and stress increases. No-dig gardening prevents this by protecting the underground ecosystem and allowing roots to develop naturally over time. As pepper plants mature, they create surprisingly extensive root systems capable of storing nutrients, regulating water uptake, and supporting repeated cycles of growth and fruit production. These hidden networks are what enable plants to recover after harvest, survive temporary setbacks, and continue producing new crops. One of the simplest ways to support this process is to avoid compacting the soil around the plant. Frequent foot traffic compresses soil particles, reducing airflow and limiting the activity of roots and beneficial organisms. Rather than relying on digging and cultivation, allow earthworms, fungi, bacteria, and other soil organisms to perform much of the work naturally. These organisms create networks of tiny channels that improve drainage, aeration, and nutrient movement more effectively than mechanical cultivation ever could. As seasons change, many gardeners remove pepper plants as soon as growth slows. Yet even when the top growth appears dormant or inactive, the roots below may still be alive and fully capable of producing new growth when favorable conditions return. In warm regions, pepper plants can sometimes survive and produce for multiple years. In colder climates, they can often be overwintered indoors, inside greenhouses, or beneath protective coverings before returning to active growth the following season. When roots are preserved rather than destroyed, pepper plants begin functioning less like temporary annual crops and more like regenerative systems that move naturally through cycles of growth, rest, recovery, and renewed production. The idea of continuous pepper harvest is not unrealistic. It is simply the result of supporting plants with healthy soil, protected roots, and growing conditions that align with their natural biology. Long-lasting productivity comes from working with the plant's natural systems, rather than resetting the entire process every season.